You will see yourself soon.
Okay, okay, okay.
Good evening and welcome to Friday's Live with me, Raj Nayak. My guest this evening needs no introduction. He is one of India's most trusted, most respected, and most inspiring business leader. May I welcome on this live chat my friend Harsh Mariwala. Harsh, welcome to Friday's Live with Raj Nayak.
Thank you so much, Raj. It's my honor and privilege to be with you on this chat.
I was like, there's so many things I want to say about you, but hopefully, as the chat progresses,
I hope good things only, huh?
only good things. And you are such a legend in your own right. You're a game changer. So for me, doing this with you, I'm super excited. I've known you for a long time, but your journey has been something very inspiring. And I must tell you something, Harsh.
Mhm.
I've done many this is probably my 38th or 39th live chat, but the amount of interest, I've got messages from Singapore, Vietnam, Dubai, I don't know where, people messaging me saying that they're looking forward to this evening. So thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you. I hope I don't let down the viewers in terms of what
No,
I have
I'm
to
sure.
say, but that much extra pressure on me to perform better. But nonetheless,
Nice.
I'll take it up as a challenge.
So great. So
Yeah.
I'm going to start. You are from South Bombay and you grew up in South Bombay. So I want
Yeah.
to ask you, what are your early childhood memories?
So I was born actually I was born at home, We have a family house at Haji Ali, which is still there. Though in for last 20 years now, I'm no more a South Bombay person. I have shifted to Bandra. But I first 40 years of my life, I grew up in South Bombay at Haji Ali. And I was born in that house, actually. I was not born in a hospital. Joint family. My father had three brothers. He had six sisters, and my grandparents, and everybody was staying in the same building except the his sisters got married. But huge family. I mean, if I had to count my uncles and my first cousins, it will go on to 100 at least. So a very close family. A lot of interests, wide interest, and I think that exposed me to a lot of things, which just breadth of things. One of my uncles was a very good rider. My father and one of my uncles played golf. One of my other uncles, very good sailor. So I tried virtually everything. And one common thing which everybody had, and which I also inherited that interest, was the interest of Indian classical music. And every day in the evening, Indian classical music would be played in the house at dinner time or post dinner or pre dinner. And wonderful days, we had, for the first few years it was a joint common kitchen, but it became too unwieldy. So at some stage, each flat had its own kitchen, and as I said, we had four-story building, one floor for each brother. So it was a lot of closeness, a lot of interactions, open doors, and there were no bells to get into a house. Um, Many cousins. So I have very pleasant memories of my childhood spent in a joint family, and that also taught me a lot, because when you are a part of joint family, there is a lot of give and take. You have to play a larger role, and I was the first person from the next generation, so I had to play a role when, at those days, when somebody went abroad, it was a big thing, and I had to go and drop them to the airport and go and pick them up again from the airport. Um, Once I started going to office, we used to go to office in the same car. So a lot of togetherness in doing things, being together, as well as learning from each other.
And so tell me something about your parents. I mean, your grandparents also lived with you, right? I mean, at that
Yes,
time.
yes, yes. My grandparents also. I was also very close to my grandparents. My father, the eldest brother, and both my father and mother played golf, and that's how I took interest to playing golf. Our house was located next to the Willingdon Golf Club at Haji Ali, and I could, from my flat itself, I could see the golf course. So Uh, so it was uh, my father was is the one who started the business. He converted the business from a trading business to a manufacturing business. And I think he's the one who converted that and made the journey into setting up industries based on our earlier trading business. We used to trade in edible oils, we used to trade in spices, we used to export spices. And my father started an oil crushing plant, he started an oil refinery plants. And from oils, we started making chemicals. And from spices, we started making spice extracts. So he's the one who initiated our shift from trading to manufacturing. And then my uncles joined the business. It was a joint business where everybody was involved in the business, and a typically family owned and managed business located in the heart of commodity markets in Masjid Bandar. Um, and there were no professionals, so a lot of work and a lot of decisions, or most of the decisions, were taken by the family. Um, so I think that's how I grew up, and I studied in New Era High School in Bombay, and then after that I did my commerce and economics from Sydenham College. Post that, I wanted to study further. I wanted to do my MBA. Unfortunately, I could not get admission into a MBA school in India. At that time, there were only two or three schools: Bajaj and IIM Ahmedabad and IIM Calcutta. So I wanted to go abroad, and my father said, "No, you can't go abroad." He was very scared, maybe, of me not coming back. And I think those days we were far more obedient compared to today's children. And he said, "You just join the business and learn through the business." So I was just thrown into the business. Nobody trained me, nobody guided me. Father said that you go and have a look at whatever you want to do. So I started visiting factories. I started visiting customers, industrial customers. Went to the trade because we were selling edible oil in bulk in trade. So that's how I started, getting interactions from each and every part of the business and started learning. So
When
that's
you
the
say,
way. Yeah.
yeah,
Go ahead,
when you
Bharat.
say you couldn't get into any MBA school at that time,
Yeah.
they say when you don't get what you want, or
Yeah.
when you don't get what you get is experience. And
Yeah.
today MBA schools will be calling you to speak to them.
No, no, I've spoken not once, but maybe 10, 100 times to
Yeah,
the best of MBA schools, including I've got invitation from Harvard and other
yeah,
schools where I've not gone because it was just too much to travel all the way there. But I've spoken at London School of Business. I've spoken at most of the IIMs in India. But I think that what that did was actually, it ignited a spirit to learn in me, and that's how I started reading a lot. I started reading a lot on management, and I started interacting with thought leaders who had studied management from very good companies, managers, professors, consultants, and I still continue doing that. And I didn't want to. I was very clear that if we had to grow, we had to recruit very good talent, and if I had to manage the talent, I better know what language they're talking. So from that time onwards, I have been a voracious reader, and I read a lot, and that's how I learned. And today we employ in Marico, we employ I think 150 plus MBAs, stroke postgraduates, and I'm easily able to understand what they are saying and interact with them. I don't feel at all inferior in terms of that fact that I have not studied MBA.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
so you know, recently you said something in one of your tweet. Your degree is not your education. What
yeah,
did you mean
yeah.
by
So I think it's luckily for me, and I think it may not be relevant for each and every professional because luckily for me, I was from an entrepreneurial family. I suppose I had the genes of starting a business and running a business, and I had the opportunity to be in a business. But if you don't study, and if you are going to have a career which is based on employment with somebody else, then I think that's clearly a negative because if you have not studied, then I think that will be a clear negative. You may not be able to get a good job. But if you want to start a business, and the likes of Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and many others, they have, and including Dhirubhai Ambani. They have not studied much, but they had that burning desire to succeed and start a business. And what I'm trying to say is that if you want to start a business or if you want to start something on your own, uh, then you can always make that up by reading, interacting with others, and that should not act as a negative in terms of your own journey.
Yeah, you mentioned some names, and so tell me. I mean, today you are an inspiring leader yourself, but when you started your early in your career, who were the people you looked up to? I mean, or if I ask you today, who are
Yeah.
the who are, uh, the what I said was most trusted, most respected, most inspiring leader. That's how I described you. So if you had to say most trusted, most respected, most inspiring leader that you look up to, who would that be?
So difficult to answer that question. I've always found it very difficult to identify one individual who has all these qualities. I always looked at corporations rather than individuals which were better managed, because in a big corporation, what happens is there is a leader, there is a history of leadership prior to that, and there's a culture which is built up in the organization, and the organization is a collective of many leaders which make them perform, which makes that organization perform. So I like to study organizations which have good culture and study from them rather than looking at one individual leader. But if you had to ask me I mean, the names which come to my mind are the big names which everybody has heard about, which is whether it's Steve Jobs or Elon Musk, or even when it comes to giving back something to the society, somebody like Azim Premji. So there are many individuals, but I don't have one individual who I can name whom I have looked at from the time I started working.
So when you started working how did you? I mean, when you're running, being part of a family business, and then
Yeah. Yes.
you want to branch out and you want
Yes.
to pursue your own passion, do something different. It's not
Yes.
easy, right? Especially when you're in a joint family.
True. True.
So how did you manage that, and what was the reaction from the family?
So it went through phases. When I started, as I said earlier, one of the businesses at that time, the name of the company was Bombay Oil Industries, was the edible oil business, where we were selling coconut oil, we were selling refined oils in bulk to the trade as well as to some industries. And that business was not doing too well. A lot of the business success depended on how well you covered your raw materials and how the raw material prices behaved. So it was very erratic in terms of margins and performance. And I said that if I can convert that business from unbranded to branded, the business will be far more profitable. It will be far more sustainable. And that's how I began my journey in terms of converting that business into branded business. I started traveling to interior markets. I started appointing distributors. In many small towns in Maharashtra, Gujarat, you could not find even a hotel at those days to stay in, or a good hotel to stay in. And I've stayed at distributors' houses, go to the market, do retailing yourself. Recruited, of course, you recruited some talent, supervisors and all, or sales rep who could be with you. But I did very basic stuff like appointing distributors, and then as the business started growing, appointed advertising agency. I didn't know anything about advertising agency, so I told the agency that before I start managing, I want to learn from you. So 1 week I spent in the agency learning what advertising meant and how to go about doing advertising. So very much learning from the bottom, and that's how my journey began in terms of consumer products. I was very clear that I did not want to go into an industry which meant that I had to get a license, or which meant that I had to get a favor from some government official, because I am really very bad at that part. So thank God in consumer products, I didn't have to go to Delhi at all. In my first 40, 50 years, or in my whole working journey, I have hardly been to Delhi to get a license. Luckily, our sector is quite de-licensed. So thank God for that. And ultimately the success depended on how well you manage the business rather than the fact that you got a license or you got some favors done. from someone, I was also not, I was very clear I didn't want to go to B2B, because again, that meant that you have to go and some grease somebody's palms, or go and, entertain somebody. And I was just not cut out for all that kind of work. One other clear no for me was I don't want to go into high tech business, because I don't understand too much. My technology understanding of technology is not that strong. So I had to choose a career which met all these action standards, you may call it, or which limitations, and that's how consumer products fitted that journey. It meant that I had to study consumer habits and identify what are the opportunities with the consumer upon distributors. Sorry.
It's
So I
okay.
think that's how I went into the consumer products business, and thank God I was able to identify that, and I've really enjoyed my journey, uh, almost starting from a scratch to a
Yeah.
level which we have built it up over a period of time.
So I mean, you knew nothing about brands, and today you built some of the biggest brands in this country. So my
Yeah.
question to you is, a, you said you wanted to get into something, and but how do you decide what is it that you really need to pursue? How does one decide that? I mean, I know
So I
that you
think,
had a fancy background which had the basics available
yeah,
to you,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but but still, to make that decision, what was that motivating factor?
So before I answer your question, I have not answered your earlier question about the family, and let me address that question, and I'll come to this question once I finish answering your earlier part of your question, which was how to operate in a family managed company. So I built this business from virtually zero base to almost 80 crores in Bombay Oil Industries in the first 15 years. And at that time, it became the largest part of Bombay Oil Industries. By then, four of my cousins had joined business. So at a time, we were nine of us in the same company, located in the heart of commodity markets in Masjid Bandar. Very difficult to attract talent, and in consumer products, the talent plays a very, very important role. Uh, you need talent to identify opportunities, to build brands, to distribute your products. So I was very keen to attract talent from leading MNC companies like Levers or Proctors, or leading FMCG companies. Um, and it was very, very difficult for me to attract talent located in Masjid Bandar, being a part of a larger family which uh, which managed various businesses, not having any synergies. And it took almost 2 years for me to convince the elders that can you give me some space to operate on my own in a different company where the business itself would be just consumer products. And that's how Marico was formed in the year 1990. It took 2 3 years for me to convince the elders. It was a management separation wherein I was allowed to operate this company in a different, this business in a different company. And I think, to me, looking back, that has been the most important decision in my life, because if I had not done that, or if I had not managed that transition well, I would have been struggling dealing with family dynamics, dealing with different businesses, not having any synergies, um, and the fear of the professionals having fear of dual reporting, so many family members in the organization. And that gave me a great opportunity to professionalize and recruit very good quality talent and move out from Masjid Bandar to our office in Bandra. So, just to sum up, I think being a part of the family, I think you have to look at all the family members and how you have to drive a lot of important decisions by consensus. And sometimes it can take some time, but it's worth spending that time in building that consensus, because once the consensus is built up, then your at least the path is very clear in terms of the pace of work. And if you do it through an aggressive approach, then it can backfire at you at a little later stage. So this is my answer to your part of the question on the family. Now, coming to your question on how do you identify opportunity, is that the question? And how do you
Yeah,
build
yeah.
brands?
I mean, how did you choose that? How does one actually choose that this is what I should be doing? It's very easy to say you should pursue your passion. How do you identify your passion?
Yeah, so I think clearly, I those days we had coconut oil, and that coconut oil was very good in quality. We had Parachute mainly selling in big tins, 15-liter tins. So the brand was there, and the retailer, the quality was very good of the product of the oil, and the retailer would buy the tins and then sell it in loose in bottles, which was bought by the consumer. So got very good feedback about the product. There was a market for packaged coconut oil, but much smaller than what it was today. So we said that, if our quality is so good, can we convert that into a packaged, and the brand also was there. We had one or two we had some packaging done in one of our factories, and it was being sold in parts of Maharashtra and Gujarat. So to some extent the product was there, but in a very minute scale. And my initial forays were more into scaling it up, not only in Maharashtra and Gujarat but all over India. So my first initiatives, and similarly Safola, we had that small brand which was being neglected. So my first foray into consumer products happened because of the fact that there were some seeds of consumer products which were sown by my uncles, and which I expanded, and which I grew. And once that grew, then it was a question of identifying opportunities. I if I look back at my own journey, whenever we have innovated or whenever we have pioneered a new opportunity, that's what which has led to our success. So I would say a combination of innovation stroke identifying pioneering opportunities is the way we have built our brands. Some of them are through acquisitions also, but if I look at all the brands we have, in all the brands we are market leaders. It's I've always had that number one, number two from those days. Jack Welch used to say in GE that you have to be number one, number two, because if you are number one or number two, then you are the market leader. You get the economies of scale, and your margins are much higher than the weaker players. So I always wanted to be number one, number two in that particular segment, and that's how we grew by innovating in coconut oil market. We At that time the whole market was in tins. We converted the market in plastics completely, and that conversion was a tough conversion. It didn't happen automatically, but that really uh, ensured that our growth rate really jumped up multiple times over a few years. And the same thing we did in Bangladesh. Whatever innovations we did in India, we rolled it out in Bangladesh, and we succeeded. And we are the largest coconut oil players in branded coconut oil players in Bangladesh market. So if I had to sum up, I would say innovation stroke pioneering. Just to give one or two examples, we launched Revive Fabric Stars. It was more an insight from my personal need that I wanted to wear starch clothes, and starching is a big hassle at home. So that's how we said that can we offer a product which is easy for the housewife to starch clothes, and that's how Revive happened. We acquired a brand Medicare from Procter and Gamble. They were selling anti-lice shampoos, and we knew that if we offered the same brand under an oil format, we could increase the sale, because in rural areas, many people have not used shampoos. And I'm talking of those 20, 30 years back. And we launched Medicare in oil format, and our sales just doubled. So I think innovations, pioneering initiatives have really helped us in terms of um, growth. So I think ultimately there has to be a consumer need, and that need has to be big enough for you to build a brand which is of a certain size. And then my thinking is always that if you have to be market leader in the first few years, you have to go on over investing in the advertising part and become market leader, and then start once you get a certain critical mass, start backwards in terms of improving your cost structure and improving your margins.
I've always been curious, and I want to ask you this question: how did this name Parachute come about?
So as I said, I inherited that. It
No,
was
but
sold mainly
did
in
you
big
did
tins.
you
But
go
I'll
and
tell
ask
you, yeah,
your,
yeah, of
yeah?
course. And this is one question everybody asks me. It so happened, and Bombay was formed in the year 47, and those were the World War days. In World War, parachute was a new thing, where a lot of Indians had not seen what parachute was, and maybe my uncle thought that this is something which can be launched under the brand name Parachute. It looked like an umbrella when you show a picture of parachute. So it was known as in Hindi. It was known as in Hindi belts. It was known as Chhata brand. But a lot of my family, my friends said that you have to change the name. It doesn't fit in with coconut oil, and I don't know why, but I just said that it's working, so why unnecessary change it? I decided to continue that, and looking back, I think that has been a good decision. The brand is the whole category is known. Parachute is very closely associated with the category of branded coconut oil.
So, one of the things that you did mention is talent, and you spent a lot of time attracting new talent, and you said it was difficult to get talent. And you also,
Yes,
I've read somewhere that you also said that you spent a lot of time uh, nurturing talent, grooming talent within the organization.
yes, yes.
And
So,
yeah,
yeah, go ahead.
no, please, please, can you
No, I think
elaborate?
yeah, so I always feel that, there is a war for talent, and you have to treat hiring like marketing, because ultimately, if there's a war for talent and there's a shortage of good talent, you have to market yourself first. That means you have to identify what is unique about you. You arrive at what we call the employee value proposition, which is unique in the job market. So identify what you are doing differently compared to what others are doing from where you want to attract talent. For example, if I want to attract talent from multinational corporations and FMCG sector, then clearly in these companies, a lot of decisions take place in the headquarters, whether it is UK or USA, and the freedom given to the local talent is relatively lesser because these decisions get taken. These are global brands, and people sitting here may not be allowed to take decisions about the brand. So a lot of it gets dictated from the headquarters. In our case, we had to build our own brands. We had to arrive at our own brand names, packaging, advertising. So we said that the empowerment we give to our talent is far far higher than an MNC corporation, and we made that as our employee value proposition that we empower our people, and you will, because we empower you much more, you will learn much more than many other so-called, shall I say, big names. And why don't you join us and then see what you're going through? And I think that really cut ice with the recruitment agents, with the people, and as the word kept spreading that it's worth working in Marico. It's a great experience, and on top of that, you combine that with a culture which is very open, which is very innovative, where people are not afraid to take decisions. There is no fear of failure, and there is so you combine a culture with job rotation, challenge, and empowerment, and then you are creating the right framework for attracting and retaining talent. But it's easier said than done. The first, I think the journey began when I started recruiting talent within a very short period of time when Marico was formed in the year 1990. We recruited something like 30 or 40 senior managers and top managers at the top two levels from outside, and each of them came from a different background. Some of them came from multinational corporations, some of them came from good Indian organizations, and each one of them came with their own set of beliefs in terms of how they would, I mean, what would be their way of their leadership style, the way they would treat their teams, their thoughts on how should an organization treats profit, or what kind of products one should get into. And very quickly, I realized within a period of 6 months that we became a melting pot of different cultures because each one had their own set of beliefs. And it was quite chaotic at one level because for a certain decision to be taken, for example, if there was a non-performer, somebody else would sack that non-performer. Some other manager would give a long rope in terms of ensuring that let's train that person. Somebody else would say, no, no, we have to be loyal. So I was quite hit at that time in terms of how should we work in a unified manner, and that's how I started writing my own thoughts in terms of what was dear to me, in terms of leadership style, in terms of decisions relating to people, products, profits. And it took almost 3 4 months for me to write those thoughts, random thoughts, and I shared that with my team at that time. um, it evoked a very positive response from my team. We must have spent about 8 to 10 full days discussing the notes I'd written. And I think in that process, what happened was that our values got better defined. I also had a lot of blind spots, which somebody else had it, and they mentioned that. And we had a better structure also. So we finalized what we call our values document at that time, the three P's of Marico: people, products, and profits. So between me and my team, there was complete alignment in terms of what we wanted to do. And then we said, what next? Because we were not clear. So we worked with a management consultant, and we said that how do we take it further? And that's how we involved the next two layers of management, and we called them to a 2 day workshop, a residential workshop, where we told them that this is the work we have done, and we want their inputs. And I think those 2 days were very well spent because they looked at the values, they gave their suggestion. And on the second day, we also identified that if these are our values, what are the gaps we have today and where do we need to improve upon? So at the end of those 2 days, we had a whole host of recommendations from the team in terms of improvement areas. And the next step identified was that now we need to talk about these values to a larger set of people. So I personally went to all our locations, corporate office, all our sales locations. We had started some international operations by then, all our factories, and talked about why we need to have a culture and why we have these values. And again, after talking to them, we had small group discussions within the team, and they came back with their recommendation in terms of areas of improvement. So this involvement of people across the organization did two things. One is the fact that they were involved. It brought in very high degree of commitment. I could have finalized the values and shared with them and said that this is what I have done, but that would not have meant the involvement, because involvement brings in commitment. So I had a committed set of top leadership, top 2 3 levels of leadership, and if top levels don't give the right signal to people down the line, values will just not get reinforced and get established. So next 3 years, I personally spent a lot of time in ensuring that we created the culture, and whatever suggestions which had come in at that time, I personally was monitoring all those action plans every month with my team, and we did so many initiatives we undertook to create that culture which still exists, and we still measure that culture. And just to give you some examples, it's very easy to finalize values. I have gone in many organizations, they are pasted on the reception, but when you actually talk to people down the line, you get a lot of cynicism that this is something which is meant for the top, or it is just for showing to outsiders. I did not want that to happen. So I was very clear that the values had to be owned by every person within the organization. And that's why this whole journey of spending so much time having action plans and sending the right signals. So even if it comes to recruiting talent, we in the interview we see the values fit. Uh, when a person joins, that person goes through one full day training program in terms of the history of values and why values are important. We measure each and every value every year at amongst all our employees, and a presentation is made to the board. And if there are gaps at any location or any function, the HR steps in and tries to improve upon values. So, what are the values and what is our culture? Because it's very easy to say that you have to have values, but I was very clear that I had to drive an organization which was innovative. And ultimately, values have to help business. It is not a standalone thing where you're happy. It's not an end by itself, it's a means to an end. So culture which should drive growth, which should help innovation, is something which I was building in. So we identified openness as a very important pillar for culture building, openness and trust. We identify risk taking, experimentation, empowerment. And at that time, because we had converted from a family managed to a professionally managed companies, I also wanted to give a strong signal that we were an organization which was based on meritocracy. So no influence will work within the organization. Even if I had some recommendation from a friend to consider someone for recruitment, it would be only considered on merits. So how do you build all these values into a culture is a bigger challenge, you know. And I did a lot of reading, and we internally discussed. I'll just give you two examples. You know, how do you drive openness? So we were moving at that time into a new office, and the brief given to the interior designer was that it should reflect openness. So the office which was done up was everybody could see each other. We have an open house every year amongst all our members, including at our factories, where anybody can ask any awkward questions to management. So again, it reinforces openness. We have a specialized 6-day training program for all our managers, where they go through an experiential process where openness is encouraged. Um, we also have relationship reviews with the boss and the team. They may go out for 2 days once in 2 3 years and talk about how the relationships are, how open are they. So when you look at openness from different angles, then you create an open culture. Similarly, trust. How do we send a strong signal of trust amongst our members? So from that time onwards, we said that we trust you. We did away with muster in the organization. We said that can we do away with sick leave and casual leave, because we trust you. If you are sick, you can take your sick leave, but don't take it as an entitlement that yeah, entitled to you. I mean, if you're sick for 1 month, it's okay to take 1 month sick leave. So the organization sent very strong signals about trust. Similarly, if uh, uh, if you incurred a expense on behalf of the company, normally in most companies you go to go to the boss for authorization of their expenditure. In our case, we went into a system where you can self-authorize your own expense based on guidelines which are given to you, and again a very strong signal on trust. So for each of the values, we try to find out what how can we reinforce on a perpetual basis so that it becomes a very strong value and it becomes a strong culture. In case of innovation, we were very clear that we needed to have a diverse set of people, so we started recruiting people from diverse backgrounds and also empowering access. um, in a way, it helps innovation, openness, dialogues, experimentation. We encourage a lot of experimentation and prototyping, and it's okay to fail. If you fail, you do not get punished. The moment any management punishes a failure, then people will stop taking this. Because in a consumer product, as you know, 1 or 2 out of 10 succeeds. There are bound to be failures, but if you can reduce your risk in terms of whatever financial risk by prototyping it in one market or in one set of say retail stores, but you have to prototype rather than just launching all out if you want to de-risk yourself. But you have to do continuous experiments and avoid the fear of failures if you want innovation to happen. So these are the kind of things we've done in terms of culture building, in terms of attracting talent. And I must say that whenever I met anybody who has been with us, and many of them have left to pursue another career, and invariably the feedback which comes to me from them is that though they left us and they're doing well, but in their own career, the experience they've had with Marico has been the best and the most memorable experience. And we also cherish our relationship with all our ex-employees. We call them to dinners to celebrate our milestone achievements, and we are in touch with them. And many of them who have left us have joined us back. So we are continuously in touch with them because we believe that our ex-Americanians are our ambassadors in the job market and in overall corporate circles.
Has so inspiring. I'm venturing into something in basically about culture in organizations and things like that, and everything that you said is music to my ears. So I was really enjoying it. I was engrossed. So
Okay.
tell me, who is the person who carries the can? Where is it, the CHRO of a company or the CEO? If you really have to drive down culture in an
Yeah.
organization, who should carry the can?
Clearly the CEO. CEO has to lead, and CEO and his top two, three layers of management. CHRO, of course, CHRO is responsible if there are some deviations. He is a very important pillar in driving culture and ensuring that all the new recruitments are fitting into the cultural whatever values. But I would say most important is CEO. If CEO is not interested, then no CHRO can drive culture within an organization if that person doesn't get support from CEO. And it has to be top led. I'm absolutely clear. Culture building is the top led exercise, and it has to be led from the top.
It's really nice that you said this. I hope I can use this bite to just tell CEOs in this country that how important it is for them to
Yeah,
spread.
many of them don't recognize. That's the sad part. They can say, okay, now you do it through HR, but that doesn't work. It just doesn't work if that CEO is not taking it seriously.
Okay, I mean, due to paucity of time, I'm gonna shift gears a
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, sure.
One of the most difficult things in life is to let go.
Yeah.
And after 24 years, you suddenly decided to step down and hand over the reins to somebody else. I
Yeah,
mean, especially in the more from an Indian context, an Indian
yeah,
entrepreneur
yeah,
don't like
yes,
to let go. They don't like to give up control. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah,
how did you make that decision? Was it? I'm sure it wasn't easy.
yeah. So it is not. I mean, 24 years from the time Marico formed, but before that, I was in business for almost 20 years, um, and managing that profit center of consumer products in Bombay or industry. So in a way, my experience has been larger. I I I've always felt that perpetuity is very, very important. At least as far as I'm concerned, as far as the company is concerned, I am not a kind of person who is a serial entrepreneur who wants to build businesses and sell off. I don't think I'm a kind of person who would want to sell off the company. As long as I have confidence in that business, if some brand is not doing well, and if I feel that okay, I don't have a future in that, I have sold off a few brands. But by and large, if the business is successful, if I am hopeful about the business, I like to drive perpetuity. And I think it reached a stage wherein I had managed that company for many years, and the person who is now the MD had aspirations of becoming the MD in a company. And at that time, he came to me and asked me whether he could play that role. I was I was not prepared at that time in terms of stepping down because I had kept myself a certain target, which was likely to happen a few years later. But I mean, he was keen, he was impatient, and I discussed that with my board, and then I said that, what do we do? Because if he didn't see that happening from his end, he would have left. And he was very clear and open about it, saying that I'm not trying to pressurize you, but at least if you can give me a comfort that you will consider me, then I will not look out for an opening. So it was a very difficult moment for me because number one, I was mentally not ready at that time to step down. But nonetheless, I discussed that with my board of directors. We have a very active board, and and I discussed with them, and then they felt that we need to retain this person who came to me, and then that's how I decided to step down. One thing which happens in most Indian families, and it's a family-owned company, is that there is a strong hierarchy in the Indian society. So the society expects that your children will follow you. Um, so there were a lot of, shall I say, personal challenges at my end in taking that decision. I think, but what thumb rule I followed was that okay, the organization's interest comes first, and then my interest. I'm a promoter, but if I look at the promoter interest first and the organization's interest second, then it's not good for the business. If the organization's interest comes first, whenever there has been a conflict, whether it is the promoter or any other stakeholder, I always ask this question: what is best in the interest of the organization? So whether it's a fantastic person who has played a very important role, who has been very effective, but at some stage starts getting less effective, there is always a conflict. Okay, can you ask him to go? Should you reward loyalty? And at any time like that, I always use this sum rule. What is the organization's interest is most important. And I have taken some decisions in terms of asking some people to go, but that has been in the interest of the organization. And in this case, also, it was in the interest of the organization. And looking back, I think that's worked out well. The board also asked me to ensure that the transition happened smoothly, because in most promoter driven or promoter built promoter founded companies, there is there is a temptation from the promoter to go on managing and interfering into day to day affairs. And I think the board was clear that I should not do that, because if I did that, then I think I would be undermining the overall role of the chief executive and the managing director. So I wrote down where all I'll get involved, and it very high degree of clarity in terms of whom I should be interacting with the MD, the team, outsiders. My what would be my role in media? I think that role clarity really helped me as well as him in terms of ensuring that we worked together to ensure that there was synergy between us, and also it was good for the organization in terms of ensuring that we worked in a positive and combined way, which was very good for the organization. If I look at many of Indian companies which have faltered in this area where they've appointed a CEO, I think what two reasons. One is maybe they've not appointed the right CEO, but even after appointing the CEO, the promoter has gone on interfering into day-to-day affairs, and I think that doesn't work out well. So it's very important to have that clarity in terms of handing over reins. Of course, it is difficult. I was not ready, so I had to prepare myself in terms of doing other things. I'm not the kind of person who can sit at home and do nothing. So I had to identify some new initiatives, reinvent myself, as we were talking, Raj, prior to our interview, that okay, you're also in the process of reinventing yourself. But I think at some at some intervals in life, you need to assess that okay, you've done something for so long, and can you do something else? And I think I have done that, and I'm happy with my journey in the last 4 or 5 years. After I've stepped down, I've done lots and lots of new things, and which have kept me occupied, which have given me a new learning. So all in all, it's worked out well from all angles: the company's angle, my angle, as well as his angle.
Harsh, you mentioned your children. I mean,
Yes, yeah, yes,
you got a daughter
yeah,
and a son and a
yes,
daughter,
yeah,
Rajvi and
yeah,
Shab.
yeah,
So,
yes.
did they at any time express interest to get into the business, and how did you manage
So
that conflict?
Each of them is very passionate about what they do. My daughter I think she's not, I think I know she's a leading canine behaviorist in Bombay. She she trains owners, not only canine now, for she deals with cats also, feline also, and that's her passion, and she enjoys that. She enjoys handling difficult cases, and she also has a huge passion for mental health. And with her, I've started after I stepped down, I've started a new initiative in terms of helping mental health, and I think we've done extremely well. She's the one who manages it. I support it financially from my personal side. It's not a corporate CSR. It's something which I'm supporting from. So we help organizations which are in the area of mental health uh, to scale up. To we give them grants. We work with something like today 12, 14, but over a period of time we have huge aspirations um, to increase the numbers, and we want to be a thought leader. And I clearly believe that we are thought leaders in India as far as mental health is concerned. So she has a full-time role in mental health and canine role. And my son decided to pursue interest in starting an investment office. That's what he liked, and he has built a very strong portfolio of companies which he has invested in, which has done extremely well. And that's what He drives his passion, and that's really got a big scale now. And I spent some time with him, but independently he operates. So we invest in both public markets as well as in startups, and more than startups, I think early stage businesses. So both of them are very well settled. Both of them are very happy. My son also is on board of Marico, so he plays a role. He also participated with me and the MD and his team in terms of monthly reviews. So he has to be at least aware of what's happening within the organization and able to take the reins from me over a period of time. But our roles have shifted from actively promoter-driven company to a strategic investor-driven company.
You mentioned somewhere that you had three phases of your life: earning, no, learning, earning, and I remember that line.
Yeah,
So
it's not mine. I mean, it's quite it's used very often, but I mean the whole time frame has changed. Earlier, it was first
now,
25
so,
years
so,
of
so if
learning.
you had
After
to take,
that, yeah, yeah. Go
so
ahead,
if you,
Raj.
so if you had to take these three things, what
Yeah.
did you say was your most pronounced learning from each of these?
It's very difficult to say which is the most pronounced, but clearly each of them has been very, very different, And I've enjoyed each part, and I think it's good to have different subjects, different ways to learn. And what I'm learning today is very, very different from what I learned when I built up a business. And now I'm playing more an influence role where I influence other. I'm on board of like 6, 7 companies. I'm also on advisory board of 3, 4 funds. I help my son with the family office. I work with my daughter on mental health. I'm working with entrepreneurs, and if any of your current people who are interested in our entrepreneurs, they can join this journey I've started. We have something like 700, 800 members today. It's known as Ascent. If you please look up the website ASCENT Ascent ascentorg.in. I think that's the website name. But if you are running a business and if you want to join, you have to apply, and there is no cost attached to it. So this is something which I'm spending a lot of time. And as I said, we have about 700, 800 entrepreneurs. We want to increase to 1,000 within this year, and they will learn a lot through peer learning. I spend a lot of time on the Ascent. We have conclaves. I also mentor entrepreneurs. We have over 30, 40 mentors who also help these entrepreneurs dealing with their own set of issues. So a lot of things done in a very, shall I say, diverse ways, whether it's giving back something to the society, as well as my involvement in Kaya and Marico continues. I've also started a new business. So I've started two centers which are a pioneering move, which is recovery from injuries based on aqua. So we have pools in Bombay, in Andheri and Worli. So if you have any aqua issues, if you have any neuro issues like stroke, if you have any women's health or even pediatric issues, then you can go, and the recovery in water is much much faster because you are able to exercise very easily in water compared to land. So I think that's something which you have started about 2 years back, and except for the pandemic where we had to close the centers because of pool, but otherwise I see a bright future for that also.
No, no. I mean, I was just going through, and I saw Marico Innovation, Ascent, Kaya Skin
Yeah,
Clinic,
yeah,
Mariwala
yeah.
Health Initiative, Aqua Center.
Yes.
I mean, you got your
Yeah.
fingers in almost
So
everything.
I forgot to mention innovation. We have a Marico Innovation Foundation where I again spend time. So I'm quite involved and I'm quite busy doing a lot of diverse things, and I think that's a different learning from managing a full-time business.
Harsh, you're writing a book.
Yes.
So when is it gonna come out? What's it all about?
So the book is now gone to the publisher. The publisher is Random House, Penguin Random House, and it's they are just finalizing the if there are some grammatical errors or something editing the book. But the book is ready. I have a co-author in Professor Ramcharan, whom I have learned a lot from. He is a very famous, for those who don't know, he's a very famous management consultant and a coach. And he's written something like 30 books, and some of his books have sold something like 3 million copies. So he's given his insights into the book. And I spent a lot of time improving. Earlier it was written, but I was not happy. And my wife is a very good, I think she's a very good writer. And I spent a lot of time in pandemic improving my book, and we have rewritten the book, and I'm very happy with the content. It's a very good combination of story, emotions, rations, and failures, learnings. And I'm sure entrepreneurs, professionals, students will learn a lot from this book, because it's not theory. It's combined with my own personal experience, failures, learnings, as well as giving something back to the society. So the name of the book is Harsh Reality. It's spun on the word harsh, and it should come out hopefully by within next 2 months.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned failing. I mean, everybody speaks about success, and your success everybody knows. But if you had to go back and see one thing which you think was your failure, what would that be?
Not one. I can give you 10 failures, but that will take 1 more hour. So you tell me, how much time do I have?
No, you have time. You have time. At least some key ones, so that we have some learnings. Yeah.
So I'll give you one recent failure. Be Saffola is a brand which is good for the heart, and we we wanted to go to Saffola Foods. We already had launched Saffola low sodium salt, and we said that at that time, if we can, and I'm talking of 6 7 years back, we at that time all the snacks were fried, and we said that can we launch snacks under the brand name Saffola, which are not fried but which are baked. So we developed the products, and we said that let's prototype that in Bombay, bake snacks. Now, the thinking in the team was that because it is under the brand name Saffola, it should be healthy. So health was given preference compared to taste. And the product was very healthy, but not as tasty, because the brief given to the R&D was health is more important than taste. And in a category like snacks, it backfired. People want taste first, because it is impulsive eating. You eat your snacks either with your tea or with a drink, and there was no way a consumer is going to give preference to health. So the product did not do well, and that was a failure. So I think for every failure, we've sat down and we've identified what are the learnings out of the failure. In this case, the clear learning was that if you want to launch foods, taste is very, very important. You can't give so much preference, especially when it comes to the foods, health over taste. And then a few years later, we launched Saffola Plain Oats. It did well, but it had a limited market share. We got about 15-20% market share in the oats category. And then we went back to the consumer, and we realized that Indian consumers preferred savory breakfast. They did not want sweet breakfast, which the oats were prepared in. So we saw an example of Maggie, which was offering a whole range of savory noodles, and we said that can we offer masala oats, pongal oats, pav bhaji oats. So we did a lot of research on the taste, and we went to each state and identified the taste profile for the particular taste for particular state, and we launched the product in South first after profiling the taste. So we have now in masala oats, we have in savory oats, we have different flavors depending on the state, and also we have ensured that if some state likes more spicy, we make it spicy for that particular taste state. So we've gone overboard on taste and as well as variants for that particular need of that particular community or that state. And we launched that product, and it's become a large category. We have something like 80% market share in that category, and it's already grown to about I think 150 crores turnover. Our savory oats. So the learning from the failure of snacks was very well incorporated in the oats category, in the savory oats category. So that's one failure I've talked about. But I think each failure will take about 10, 15
No,
minutes.
no,
So I
no.
think,
Fair enough. Fair
yeah,
enough. We
yeah, yeah,
can, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, we can leave it for another time. But thank you so
yes,
much.
yeah,
And I'm gonna plug happiness before I go, because
sure.
that's something that I'm, so inspired by you. So I'm trying to reinvent myself, do something completely different, like I told you. So
Sure.
you mentioned at one time that it's very important for people to be happy at a workplace.
I would say happy and engaged more, and then they have to
Yes.
feel like they have to be charged from within. And I like people who have a burning desire to succeed, because they said that passion is important, but to me, I like the word grit. Passion combined with determination and perseverance brings in grit. And every person will have setbacks, but if you have grit, you will overcome that setback. So the organization's role is to ensure that you keep people happy. They're engaged. They are giving their best. A lot depends on the individual also, and a lot depends on the culture which you built in, which creates that magic, so that people perform to the peak.
Harsh, my last question to you: what makes you happy?
What makes me happy? I have to be engaged again. I am not kind of person who can sit at home and do nothing. So I like doing newer things. I like to achieve things. I go on upping my standards, whatever I want to do. I like to create an impact. I like to make a difference. Ultimately, I have to make a difference to others, and that's what makes me happy. And whatever I do, whether it's a business I run, or whether it's a mental health initiative, or whether it's the entrepreneurs, I have to make a difference. Business is not run only for a financial reason. You have to make a difference to people's life, and I think that's what drives me.
And how's your golf coming along before we end?
Golf is coming on well. It's okay. I could always improve on golf, but I'm quite regular. I enjoy that game, and I'm going to play tomorrow and day after. I don't miss my golf game. I would miss a lunch, but I would not miss a golf game.
On that note, Harsh, thank you so much. And to all our viewers, thank you for tuning in, for watching Friday's Live. And Harsh Mariwala, there's so much you can learn from him. His book is coming out. Please don't forget to buy it and read it. But even otherwise, you can just, there's a lot of insights you get from just following him on Twitter, or reading his interviews. It's very important. I mean, for especially for entrepreneurs. And Ascent, like he mentioned, it's free. So if you want to be a part of it, just log in and apply. Thank you, Harsh. Thank you for your time. And I
Thank you, Raj.
truly
My
enjoyed
pleasure.
this
Yeah.
conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much.